Captain Jake Morrison was drinking his morning coffee when the emergency alarm started screaming across the ship. The hot liquid spilled on his uniform as he jumped up from his chair and ran toward the bridge. The UES Liberty had been traveling through empty space for 3 weeks now, mapping new star systems and looking for signs of life. They had found nothing but rocks and gas until this moment. Lisa Park was already at her station when Jake reached the bridge. Her fingers were moving fast across the communication controls, and her face looked worried. She had been the ship's communication officer for 2 years, and Jake had never seen her look this scared before. "What do we have, Lisa?" Jake asked as he took his place in the captain's chair. "Sir, we are getting a distress signal from the Kepler 4442 system," Lisa said without looking up from her screen. "But Captain, this signal is not from any human ship." Jake felt his heart beat faster. Humanity had been traveling between stars for only 5 years now. They had found empty worlds and dead systems, but never another species that could talk to them. The scientists back on Earth had said they might find other intelligent life someday, but nobody expected it to happen so soon. "Can you clean up the signal?" Jake asked. Lisa worked on her controls for several minutes while the rest of the bridge crew watched in silence. Chief Engineer Ryan Cole came up from the lower deck, still wearing his work clothes and carrying a wrench. First Officer Kate Sullivan was checking the ship's weapons and shields, even though they had no idea what they might face. "Got it," Lisa said finally. "Captain, you need to hear this." The voice that came through the speakers was nothing like a human voice. It sounded higher and had strange music in it, but the words were clear because the computer was translating them into English. "We are the Zalani people of the third world in this system. Our home is under attack by ships of the hegemony fleet. They have surrounded our planet and are destroying our cities. Our defense ships cannot stop them. We are sending this message to anyone who can hear us. Please help us. We have children and families who will die if no one comes. This is our final call for help." The bridge was completely quiet after the message ended. Jake looked around at his crew and saw the same thoughts on their faces that were going through his mind. They were just one small exploration ship with basic weapons and shields. They were not built for fighting, and they had no idea how strong these hegemony ships might be. "How far away are they?" Jake asked. 3 weeks at maximum speed," answered Kate Sullivan. "Captain, our orders from Earth Command were very clear. We are supposed to avoid any contact with alien species until we can report back and get instructions." Jake nodded. He knew the orders well. Humanity was still new to space travel, and the government wanted to be very careful about first contact with other species. They were supposed to observe and report, not get involved in alien wars. "What else can you tell me about this hegemony?" Jake asked Lisa. Lisa worked at her station for a few more minutes. "I am picking up some data transmissions from their direction. The computer is trying to translate them, but it's difficult. From what I can understand, the hegemony seems to be some kind of military empire that controls many star systems." Ryan Cole spoke up from where he was standing. "Captain, if we go there and these hegemony ships are as strong as they sound, we might not be able to help anyone. We might just get ourselves killed too." "And if we don't go," said Amy Foster, the ship's doctor, who had just arrived on the bridge, "then an entire species might die while we could have done something about it." Jake looked out at the stars on the main screen. He had joined the space service because he wanted to explore new worlds and maybe find other intelligent life out there. He had never expected that the first aliens they met would be calling for help while being attacked by other aliens. "Sir," Lisa said quietly, "the signal is getting weaker. I think their transmitter might be damaged." Jake thought about his wife and daughter back on Earth. He had promised them he would be careful and come home safely. But he also thought about the voice in that message, asking for help for their children. How could he turn away when people needed help, even if they were not human people? "Kate, what do we have for weapons?" Jake asked his first officer. "2 plasma cannons, basic shields, and some defensive missiles," Kate replied. "Nothing that would be effective against real warships." "But we have something else," Ryan said slowly. "We have human engineering and human thinking. Every system on this ship can be modified if we need to. We can probably make ourselves much more dangerous than anyone would expect." Amy Foster looked worried. "Captain, I have to say this. If we go there and get into a fight, people on this ship might die. I can patch up injuries, but I cannot bring back the dead." Jake stood up and walked to the front of the bridge. He could feel his crew watching him and waiting for his decision. Back on Earth, there were committees and generals who made decisions about war and peace. But out here, 3 weeks away from the nearest human ship, he was the one who had to choose. I became a starship captain because I wanted to do something important with my life, Jake said to his crew. We all left Earth because we wanted to be part of something bigger than ourselves. Well, now we have the chance to save an entire species from being destroyed. He turned around to face them. I cannot order any of you to risk your lives for aliens we have never met. But I also cannot ignore people who are asking for help when we might be the only ones who can provide it. Lisa looked up from her station. Captain, the signal just stopped completely. Jake felt a cold feeling in his stomach. Are they gone? I don't know, sir. Either their transmitter was destroyed or... Lisa did not finish the sentence. Jake made his decision. Ryan, I want you to start working on modifications to our weapons and shields. Kate, plot a course for the Kepler 442 system and prepare the ship for maximum speed. Lisa, keep monitoring all frequencies in case they send another message. And me, Captain, asked Amy. Get the medical bay ready for casualties. We are going to war. The UES Liberty dropped out of warp speed at the edge of the Kepler 442 system, and what Jake Morrison saw on the main screen made his blood run cold. 12 massive ships were floating in orbit around a beautiful blue and green planet that looked almost like Earth. The alien ships were sleek and curved, with dark metal hulls that seemed to absorb light. Each one was at least twice the size of the Liberty. Below them, the planet was burning. Jake could see bright flashes of light where the alien ships were firing their weapons at the surface. Smaller ships that must have belonged to the Zilani were trying to fight back. But as Jake watched, another one exploded in a ball of fire and debris. My God, whispered Kate Sullivan from her position next to Jake. It's a massacre. Lisa Park was working frantically at her communication station. Captain, I'm picking up hundreds of distress calls from the planet's surface. Cities are being destroyed. The Zilani ships in orbit are being picked off one by one. Ben Hayes, the ship's tactical officer, was scanning the enemy fleet with every sensor they had. Sir, those ships are armed with plasma beam weapons and some kind of energy torpedoes. Their shields are reading at levels 3 times stronger than ours. Each ship has enough firepower to destroy us with a single shot. Jake stared at the destruction happening in front of them. They had traveled for 3 weeks to get here, pushing their engines to the limit. Ryan Cole had worked day and night to improve their weapons and shields. But looking at those massive enemy ships, Jake wondered if they had made a terrible mistake. Captain, Amy Foster said from her station, I'm reading thousands of life signs on the planet, but the numbers are dropping fast. Before Jake could respond, the communication system crackled to life. A cold mechanical voice filled the bridge, speaking perfect English through their translation computers. Unknown vessel, you have entered hegemony space without permission. Identify yourself immediately or you will be destroyed like the other primitives. Jake stepped forward toward the main screen. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earthship Liberty. We received a distress call from this system and came to provide assistance. There was a pause and then something that sounded like laughter came through the speakers. Earth, the third planet of the Sol system? The Death World? Jake looked around at his crew with confusion. Death World? What do you mean? We have heard rumors about your species, the alien voice continued. The newcomers who somehow managed to evolve intelligence on a Class 12 Death World. We thought such stories were impossible myths. Amy Foster was checking something on her medical computer. Captain, I'm accessing their databases through our communication link. According to their classification system, planets like Earth are considered uninhabitable death worlds because of extreme weather, active geology, dangerous predators, and high gravity. They think nothing could survive on Earth, added Lisa, reading more data. Their records show that most intelligent species evolved on what they call garden worlds, planets with stable weather, no earthquakes or volcanoes, and very few dangerous animals. The alien voice spoke again, and this time it sounded amused. So the myths are true. Creatures that survived on a world of constant death and destruction. How interesting. You will leave this system immediately, Deathworlders, or you will discover that space is even more dangerous than your primitive planet. Jake felt anger building up inside him. We're not leaving. These people asked for help and we're going to give it to them. One small ship against the might of the hegemony fleet? The alien commander laughed again. Your death world may have made you tough, but it clearly did not make you smart. You have 10 minutes to leave. or we will add your wreckage to the debris field." The communication ended, and the bridge fell silent except for the sound of the ship's engines and the quiet beeping of instruments. Jake looked at his crew and saw fear in their eyes, but also determination. They had all volunteered for this mission knowing it might be dangerous. "Ben, what are our chances in a straight fight?" Jake asked. "Honestly, sir, almost zero," Ben replied. "Their weapons and shields are far superior to ours. If they all attack us at once, we wouldn't last 30 seconds. "But Captain," Ryan Cole said, climbing up from the engineering deck, "I've been thinking about what they said. They called us Deathworlders because we evolved on a dangerous planet. Maybe that gives us advantages they don't understand." "What kind of advantages?" Kate asked. Ryan walked to the tactical display and pointed at the enemy fleet. "Look at how they're positioned. Perfect formation, like they're on parade. On Earth, predators don't hunt in perfect lines. They use cover. They move unpredictably. They attack from unexpected angles." Amy was still reading through the alien databases. "According to this, most space battles in their part of the galaxy follow very formal rules. Ships line up and fire at each other until one side wins. It's like a chess game." "But we didn't learn to fight by playing chess," Jake said, understanding what Ryan meant. "We learned by hunting animals that were faster and stronger than us." Ben was getting excited now. "Captain, these ships are designed to fight other civilized species who follow predictable battle tactics. They've probably never faced anything like human combat methods." Lisa looked up from her station. "Sir, I'm detecting another Zilani ship being destroyed." "There are only 3 left now." Jake made his decision. "Ryan, divert all power from life support and artificial gravity to weapons and shields. We can hold our breath for a while. Ben, prepare evasive maneuvers, but not the standard patterns. I want you to move this ship like we're a pack of wolves hunting elk." "Sir," Kate said, "are you sure about this? We're risking everything." Jake looked out at the burning planet and the last few Zilani ships still trying to fight against impossible odds. "Kate, my grandmother used to tell me stories about my great-grandfather who fought in World War II. He was on a small destroyer that attacked a much larger enemy fleet to protect a convoy of refugee ships. He told her that sometimes you don't fight because you think you can win. You fight because it's the right thing to do." He turned to his crew. "All hands, this is the captain. We're going into battle against superior forces to help people we've never met. It's what humans do. It's what makes us who we are." Jake sat down in his captain's chair and looked at the enemy fleet one more time. "All stations, prepare for combat. Let's show these hegemony ships what Deathworlders can really do." The Liberty charged straight into the heart of the hegemony fleet like a wolf diving into a pack of sleeping deer. Jake Morrison gripped his captain's chair as the ship rolled and twisted through space in ways that made his stomach flip. But Ben Hayes was flying the ship exactly the way Jake had asked for. "Incoming plasma torpedoes," Ben shouted from his tactical station. 12 of them, all targeting our position. "Evasive pattern Wolf 7, Jake ordered. The Liberty suddenly dropped down and spun sideways, then shot forward at an angle that would have been impossible for most alien crews to handle. The torpedoes flew past them and exploded harmlessly in empty space. Jake could hear confused voices coming through their communication system from the hegemony ships. "How are they moving like that?" one alien voice was saying. "Their ship should not be able to make those turns. Their crew should be unconscious from the gravity forces," another voice added. But the Liberty's crew had grown up on a world with gravity that was much stronger than most inhabited planets. Their bodies were built to handle forces that would crush aliens from gentler worlds. More importantly, their minds were designed to think in 3 dimensions while being thrown around, because their ancestors had spent millions of years chasing prey across rough ground and through dense forests. Ryan Cole's voice came through the ship's communication system from the engineering deck. "Captain, I'm reading massive power surges in their weapon systems. They're getting ready to fire everything they have at us." "Ryan, can you give me more speed?" Jake asked. "I can, but I'll have to shut down life support completely. We'll be breathing stored air for the next 20 minutes. "Do it," Jake ordered. The ship suddenly jumped forward with so much speed that everyone on the bridge was pushed back into their seats. The Liberty shot between 2 of the massive hegemony ships before they could turn to track her movement. Ben fired their plasma cannons at point-blank range into the engine section of one ship, and Jake was satisfied to see explosions bloom across its hull. "Direct hit," Ben reported. "Their shields are down to 60% on that ship." "How is that possible?" Kate Sullivan asked. "You said their shields were 3 times stronger than ours." Amy Foster looked up from her medical station where she was monitoring the battle. I've been studying their shield technology through our sensors. It's designed to stop large, powerful attacks. Our weapons are smaller but much faster, and we're hitting them from angles they never expected. Lisa Park was listening to enemy communications. Captain, they're confused and starting to panic. I can hear at least 3 different commanders giving contradictory orders. Jake smiled. The hegemony ships had been designed to fight formal battles where both sides lined up and fired at each other like old Earth naval ships. They had never faced an enemy that darted around like a mosquito, stinging them and flying away before they could react. Ben, target the communication arrays on the lead ship, Jake ordered. Let's make it harder for them to coordinate. The Liberty spun around and dove toward the largest hegemony vessel. This time enemy fire came much closer. Jake could feel the ship shake as plasma beams passed just meters away from their hull. Shields down to 40%, Ryan reported from engineering. We can't take many more hits like that. But Ben was already firing at the enemy ship's communication dish, and his aim was perfect. The dish exploded in a shower of sparks and metal. Immediately, Lisa reported that the confused chatter from the enemy fleet was getting worse. They can't talk to each other properly now, she said. Some ships are asking for orders that aren't coming. The Liberty shot past the big ship and curved around toward another target. Jake was starting to understand why their enemies called Earth a death world. On gentler planets, intelligence had evolved slowly and peacefully. But on Earth, being smart was not enough to survive. You also had to be fast, tough, and tricky. Captain, Amy called out, I'm reading massive explosions on the planet's surface. They're destroying entire cities while they're trying to deal with us. Jake felt anger burn in his chest. Ben, can we draw their fire away from the planet? I can try, Ben said, but we'll have to get much closer to them. Do it. The Liberty turned toward the planet and accelerated. As Jake had hoped, the hegemony ships began firing at them instead of at the helpless cities below. But now the Liberty was trapped between the enemy fleet and the planet's gravity well. Captain, Ryan's voice was strained. We're taking too much damage. Hull breaches on decks 4 and 6. I've sealed them, but we can't keep this up much longer. Jake was about to order a retreat when Lisa suddenly straightened up at her communication station. Captain, I'm reading massive energy signatures approaching from outside the system. Something big is coming through hyperspace. More hegemony ships, Kate asked. Lisa shook her head, and for the first time since the battle started, she was smiling. No, ma'am. Those are human energy signatures. Lots of them. On the main screen, Jake could see space itself beginning to ripple and bend. Then, like sharks emerging from deep water, ship after ship dropped out of hyperspace. Jake counted 30 vessels, all flying the flag of the United Earth Fleet. The lead ship was the UES Defiant, commanded by Admiral Carl Watson. Jake had never been so happy to hear another human voice as when Watson's communication came through. Liberty, this is Admiral Watson. We received your emergency beacon 3 days ago. Sorry we're late to the party. Jake laughed out loud with relief. Admiral, you're right on time. We've got 12 hegemony ships that need to be taught some manners. Copy that, Captain Morrison. All ships, this is Admiral Watson. We've got one of our own surrounded by hostiles. Let's show these aliens what happens when they threaten humans. The hegemony fleet, which had been struggling to deal with one small Earth ship, suddenly found themselves facing a coordinated attack by 30 human warships. But these were not exploration vessels like the Liberty. These were military ships, designed for combat and crewed by humans who had trained for exactly this kind of fight. This is Commander Vex of the hegemony fleet, came a panicked voice over the communication system. We demand that you withdraw immediately. This system is under hegemony control. Admiral Watson's reply was calm and cold. Commander Vex, you have 30 seconds to cease fire and withdraw from this system, or we will consider you hostile targets. 30 primitive ships cannot defeat the might of the hegemony, Vex responded. Wrong answer, Watson said quietly. All ships, weapons free. Let's show them how Deathworlders really fight. What happened next was not really a battle in the way most alien species understood fighting. The 30 ships of the United Earth Fleet moved through space like a pack of wolves that had been hunting together for years. Each ship knew exactly where the others would be and what they would do next. Jake Morrison watched from the bridge of the Liberty as the human fleet spread out around the hegemony ships. The enemy had superior weapons and stronger shields, but they moved like machines following a program. The human ships moved like living creatures, each one adapting to what was happening around them. "Admiral Watson is using Formation Tiger 7, Ben Hayes said with admiration as he watched the tactical display. "I've never seen it used with so many ships before." Formation Tiger 7 was a battle pattern that human military strategists had developed by studying how big cats hunted in packs. The ships would surround their prey, then attack from multiple directions, at once while always leaving an escape route that led the enemy exactly where the humans wanted them to go. Commander Vex of the Hegemony Fleet tried to respond with standard military tactics. His ships formed a defensive circle and began firing at the nearest human vessels, but the humans were not where he expected them to be. "How are they coordinating without constant communication?" Vex's voice came through the intercepted transmissions. "Our tactical computers cannot predict their movements." Lisa Park was monitoring all the enemy communications. "Captain, they're completely confused by our battle tactics. They keep trying to use their computer models to figure out what we'll do next. But our ships are reacting to the situation instead of following a plan." The first Hegemony ship to fall was the one that Jake had damaged earlier with the Liberty. 3 human destroyers had surrounded it and were hitting its weakened shields with focused fire. When the shields finally collapsed, the ship tried to retreat but found its path blocked by more human vessels. "Hegemony Ship Dominator is requesting permission to surrender," Lisa reported. Admiral Watson's voice came through the fleet communication system. "Permission granted. Shut down your weapons and prepare to be boarded." But Commander Vex was not ready to give up. "All ships ignore the surrender order. Focus fire on the largest human vessel. If we can destroy their flagship, the others will retreat." The Hegemony fleet turned all their weapons toward Admiral Watson's ship, the Defiant. For a moment, Jake was afraid that the concentrated firepower would be too much for even a human warship to handle. But the Admiral had been expecting exactly this move. As the enemy weapons fired, the Defiant suddenly accelerated straight up from the plane of battle while launching every missile it carried. The enemy shots passed harmlessly below the ship, while the human missiles struck 3 different Hegemony vessels at the same time. "Classic misdirection," Kate Sullivan said with a grin. "Make them think you're the main target while setting up the real attack." The battle turned into a demonstration of everything that made humans dangerous in combat. They used the debris from destroyed ships as cover, hiding behind chunks of metal and then appearing to fire from unexpected angles. They targeted specific systems instead of trying to destroy entire ships, creating fear and confusion instead of just damage. Ryan Cole's voice came from the engineering deck. "Captain, I'm monitoring the enemy power signatures. They're starting to have system failures. I think the stress of this kind of fighting is breaking down their equipment." Amy Foster looked up from her medical station. "That makes sense. Their ships were designed for formal battles with predictable patterns. This kind of chaotic combat is probably putting stress on their systems in ways they never planned for." Jake watched as another Hegemony ship tried to escape the battle. It broke away from the defensive formation and accelerated toward the edge of the system. But 2 human cruisers had been waiting for exactly this move. They appeared on either side of the fleeing ship and disabled its engines with precise shots. "The enemy is learning that running away is not an option," Ben observed. "Every escape route they try is already blocked." Commander Vex's voice was getting more desperate. "This is impossible. How can primitive ships defeat advanced Hegemony technology?" Admiral Watson responded on an open channel so all the ships could hear. "Commander, your technology is more advanced than ours, that's true. But technology is just tools. What matters is how you use the tools and who is using them." 3 more Hegemony ships surrendered within the next 10 minutes. Their crews had been trained to fight honorable battles against civilized opponents, not chaotic brawls against predators who treated space combat like a 3-dimensional hunt. Jake realized that this was the moment when humanity announced itself to the galaxy. Every alien species monitoring this battle would learn that the new species from the Deathworld was not just another peaceful civilization with better technology. Humans were something entirely different. "Captain," Lisa said, "I'm picking up communication signals from all over this part of the galaxy. Other alien species are watching this battle and talking about it." "What are they saying?" Jake asked. Lisa listened for a moment, then looked up with wide eyes. "They're calling us the Deathworld Hunters. Word is spreading that a single human ship answered a distress call and held off an entire Hegemony fleet until reinforcements arrived. The last 4 Hegemony ships were now trapped in the center of the human formation. Commander Vex had stopped giving orders and Jake could hear panic in the voices of the enemy crews. Admiral Watson's voice came through the communication system one final time. "Commander Vex, you have fought bravely, but this battle is over. Surrender now and your crews will be treated with honor." There was a long pause and then Vex's voice came through, sounding tired and defeated. "We surrender to the Deathworld fleet. All hegemony ships power down weapons and prepare for boarding." As the battle ended, Jake looked down at the planet that had started it all. The blue and green world was still beautiful despite the damage from the bombardment. Soon Zilani children would be playing in their cities again instead of hiding from hegemony weapons. But Jake knew that this victory was about more than saving one planet. Today the galaxy had learned that when someone sent out a distress call, there was now a species that would answer. The Deathworlders had arrived and they brought something that had been missing from this part of space for too long. They brought hope. 2 days after the battle, Jake Morrison stood in the main hall of the Zilani capital city, surrounded by aliens who looked like dolphins that had learned to walk on land. Their skin was smooth and gray, and their large black eyes seemed to hold wisdom that came from living peacefully for thousands of years. Elder Keth, the leader of the Zilani Council, approached Jake with movements that seemed more like dancing than walking. "Captain Morrison," Keth said through the translation device, "we have studied your species since you arrived in our system. We understand now why the other races call your world a death world and why they fear you." Jake looked around the hall, which was filled with Zilani families who had survived the attack. Children played near their parents while adults worked to repair the damage from the hegemony bombardment. The sight reminded him of his own daughter back on Earth. "We don't want anyone to fear us," Jake said. "We just wanted to help when you called for assistance." Admiral Carl Watson, who had arrived by shuttle from the Defiant, stood next to Jake as they received a full briefing about the galaxy they had stumbled into. Dr. Sarah Kim, the fleet specialist in alien cultures, was taking notes on everything they learned. "The hegemony has controlled this region of space for over 300 years, Keth explained. "They rule through fear and superior technology. Most species submit to them because fighting back seems impossible." Dr. Kim looked up from her notes. "But Captain Morrison's actions have changed that perception." Keth nodded with what looked like a smile. When word spread that a single human ship had held off an entire hegemony fleet, species across this sector began asking the same question. If the Deathworlders could stand up to the hegemony, perhaps we can too. Lisa Park had been monitoring communication signals from across the galaxy since the battle ended. "Captain, we're receiving messages from 17 different alien species. They all want to know if humanity would help them resist hegemony control." Admiral Watson frowned. "We came out here to explore, not to start an interstellar war." "But sir," said Commander Tony Lee, the Admiral's tactical officer, "according to what we've learned, the hegemony has been enslaving entire species for centuries. They destroy any civilization that develops technology advanced enough to threaten them." Amy Foster had been working with Zilani doctors to treat the wounded from both sides of the battle. "Admiral, I've been talking to the hegemony prisoners we captured. Most of them are not evil people. They're just following orders from leaders who rule through fear." Jake walked to the large window that looked out over the Zilani city. In the distance, he could see human engineers working alongside Zilani technicians to repair the damage from the bombardment. It reminded him that cooperation was always better than conflict. "What do we know about how the hegemony maintains control?" Jake asked. Dr. Kim consulted her datapad. "They use a combination of superior technology and psychological warfare. They convince other species that resistance is hopeless by demonstrating overwhelming force. But they've never faced anything like human tactics before," Commander Lee added. "Their entire military doctrine is based on fighting predictable opponents." Elder Keth approached the group with several other Zilani leaders. "Captain Morrison, we have a proposal. The Zilani Council has been in contact with leaders from other oppressed species. We want to form an alliance to resist hegemony rule." Admiral Watson looked skeptical. "An alliance means military cooperation. Earth Command did not send us out here to get involved in galactic politics." "With respect, Admiral," Jake said, "Earth Command also did not expect us to encounter a distress signal from people being slaughtered by tyrants." Ben Hayes, who had been quietly listening to the conversation, spoke up. "Sir, I've been analyzing the tactical data from our battle. The hegemony's advantage comes from fighting each species individually. If multiple species worked together using human coordination tactics, the hegemony would lose their primary advantage. Dr. Kim was nodding as she read through more intelligence reports. The hegemony has never faced a coordinated resistance movement. They're used to dealing with individual species that fight alone and get defeated one by one. Lisa looked up from her communication equipment. Captain, I'm receiving a priority message from Earth Command. The message was from General Robert Clark, the head of the Earth Space Defense Force. His voice was serious but not angry as it came through the speakers. Captain Morrison, your actions in the Kepler 442 system have been noted by every major government on Earth. While you exceeded your original mission parameters, the situation you encountered was unprecedented. The message continued. After extensive discussion, Earth Command has decided to authorize the formation of defensive alliances with peaceful alien species who are threatened by aggressive powers. You are hereby promoted to Commodore and given command of the First Contact Defense Initiative. Jake felt a mixture of pride and worry. Admiral Watson, what does that mean exactly? Watson was reading the full text of the message on his datapad. It means Earth is officially supporting the creation of a mutual defense alliance. We're not looking to conquer anyone, but we will help defend species that cannot defend themselves. Elder Keth and the other Zilani leaders looked relieved and hopeful for the first time since Jake had met them. This means the hegemony will no longer be able to attack peaceful worlds without facing consequences. Over the following weeks, representatives from dozens of alien species traveled to the Zilani homeworld. Jake found himself in meetings with beings that looked like giant insects, crystalline creatures that communicated through light patterns, and gas-based life forms that existed in protective suits. What they all had in common was a desire for freedom from hegemony, oppression, and amazement at human military capabilities. Most of these species had evolved on gentle worlds where cooperation was more important than competition. They had developed advanced science and beautiful art, but they had never learned to fight the way humans fought. The galaxy is about to change in ways we cannot imagine, Dr. Kim told Jake as they watched alien engineers studying human ship designs. For the first time in centuries, oppressed species have hope. Jake thought about the simple distress signal that had started everything. A cry for help from strangers had led to the formation of the first truly free alliance this part of the galaxy had seen in generations. You know what the best part is, Jake said to his assembled crew. When my daughter grows up, she's going to live in a galaxy where people help each other instead of just looking out for themselves. The Galactic Liberation Alliance was officially formed 3 months later, with humanity providing military leadership and other species, contributing their knowledge of science, medicine, and culture. The hegemony's reign of terror was ending, and it had all started with a simple human principle. When someone calls for help, you answer.